From our observation post in orbit, we first witnessed the phenomenon we could not explain. The humans gathered in their command chamber, a rectangular space of polished alloys and luminous panels that hummed with restrained energy. From above, we monitored the room as though peering into a den of predators. Their voices were low, purposeful, almost ritualistic, vibrating through the air with a cadence that suggested both deliberation and warning. The tension was palpable, as if the atmosphere itself had thickened, yet none of them moved with haste or panic. They did not shout, they did not tremble, they waited. And then the commander spoke, 4 words. The effect was immediate, almost violent in its serenity. The room seemed to inhale and pause, the very molecules of air stiffening around them. Subordinates' eyes sharpened, faces locking into expressions of singular focus, bodies aligning as if drawn by some invisible force toward the same inexorable purpose. Instruments registered subtle energy fluctuations, disturbances our sensors could not interpret. Fear, yes, but not their own. Something primal in the humans radiated outward, touching even the hearts of those who opposed them across the battlefield. From our distant vantage point, we watched enemy troops hesitate, confidence faltered. Even those trained to resist psychological manipulation recoiled, as if an unseen predator had entered the room. Each human movement thereafter was precise, deliberate, lethal. There was no hesitation, no error, only execution, an orchestration of intent that transformed simple commands into acts of extraordinary consequence. Yet within that cold precision, there lingered something else, something profoundly alien to our understanding: empathy. The humans did not move blindly, as though governed solely by instinct or programming. They calculated, yes, but they did so with awareness of consequence, of lives, of choices that weighed upon their conscience even as they struck with unerring accuracy. Their bodies, poised like sculptures mid-motion, emitted a confidence that radiated outward. It was not arrogance, it was inevitability, and yet it was unpredictability as well. Our analytical frameworks collapsed in the presence of this duality. We had cataloged hundreds of species, dissected strategies, decoded countless algorithms of survival and war. None possessed this combination of lethal clarity and moral resonance. Humans acted in a dimension we could neither anticipate nor contain. To negotiate with them was not merely a conversation. It was an engagement with a force that defied probability, a will that bent reality toward its purpose. We observed a subordinate gesture, a subtle signal barely perceptible, and the room responded as a single organism. The humans moved through the space like water filling a vessel, seamless, inevitable.
Weapons systems activated with exact timing, drones repositioned with preemptive foresight, and communication lines threaded into every corner of the structure. Enemy surveillance faltered, confused by patterns that did not adhere to logic, but to intent. Every human motion was a statement, every expression a warning. And yet, beneath this terrifying efficiency, there remained traces of warmth. We could see it in the eyes of a technician as he calibrated a panel to protect his companions, in the gentle hand placed on a subordinate's shoulder as reassurance before a calculated strike. The juxtaposition of unyielding precision and compassion created an aura we could not parse. It was a contradiction our sensors flagged but could not quantify. Humans embodied both predator and caretaker, executioner and guardian, strategist and empath. We realized then that any attempt to predict their behavior based purely on logic was futile. From orbit, the battlefield beyond the command chamber shifted in response to these few words. Enemy formations wavered, then recalibrated, unsure whether to attack or flee. It was as if the human will itself had reached across space, bending the intentions of those who dared oppose them. And still, the humans moved deliberately, unflinching. Each step was measured. Each glance carried information we could not intercept. We felt a new type of dread, not born of strength or numbers, but of inevitability. We cataloged the moment over and over, trying to find error, flaw, hesitation, anything that could give us insight. But no anomaly appeared. It was perfect. It was terrifying. It was human. And then, in the quiet that followed, the commander's gaze swept across the room, sharp, calculating. One hand hovered above a console, another resting lightly at his side, and the subtle tremor we expected never came. We could almost feel his awareness extend beyond the walls, touching every sensor, every enemy eye, every chance in the universe. And just as we thought we had understood them, just as we believed we could anticipate their next motion, the humans activated their protocols, and the first wave of calculated strikes launched into the void, reshaping the battlefield in ways we could neither predict nor prevent. It was in that instant, as energy flared and the enemy faltered, that we realized the truth. Negotiating with humans is never simple. Speaking with them is never safe. To engage with them is to confront the unimaginable, a force of will that bends reality, a predator of circumstance that waits calmly for the precise moment to strike. And yet, even as we observed, we could not stop ourselves from watching. We were drawn into their orbit, helpless, fascinated, terrified. The calm had fallen, and it was only the beginning. In the shadows of their precision, a new question emerged, one we feared to answer. If this is how they behave when contained, when deliberate, what might they do when unchained?
From orbit, Mars appeared as a desolate canvas of rust and fractured ice, a world of harsh extremes that should have been inhospitable to any life beyond microbial resilience. Yet the humans moved across its surface with a confidence that defied expectation. We observed them erecting structures, towers and conduits that hummed with energy we could barely detect, emitting pulses that reverberated through the thin atmosphere like muted heartbeats. The geometry of their constructions was precise but elegant, an artistry that turned raw Martian rock and ice into bastions of survival. Each placement, each alignment, suggested foresight beyond mere calculation. Our scanners quivered in the presence of their energy, as if acknowledging the raw intensity of life focused with intent. Humans worked in synchrony, their motions a choreography of purpose. They did not speak loudly, yet even the sparse Martian air carried the authority in their voices. Subtle commands reached every corner of the encampment, coordinating hundreds of individuals across jagged terrain. Even the faint Martian fauna scattered in awe or fear, recognizing perhaps instinctively the dominance of these strange bipeds. As the sun sank toward the horizon, the red sky deepened, stretching long, jagged shadows across the valleys. Human silhouettes moved among the dunes like wraiths, lithe and determined, each one a node in a network of coordinated survival. We observed them interacting with alien flora, probing, adjusting, manipulating, always with purpose, never hesitation. Where our simulations predicted failure, they produced solutions. Where probability suggested collapse, they imposed structure. Nothing we had cataloged could match this combination of adaptability and instinct. It was not brute force that enabled their survival. It was ingenuity. The humans weaponized uncertainty itself, turning environmental hazards into tools, leveraging scarcity into advantage. Ice fissures became conduits for power, dust storms became shields, the jagged terrain itself became both cover and resource. Their ability to improvise was frightening, not chaotic but deliberate, as if the Martian landscape itself bent to their will. We noted small details, hands tracing unfamiliar conduits, eyes scanning with relentless curiosity, bodies adjusting with preternatural balance across unstable surfaces. Each human acted independently, yet in perfect synchrony at the whole. This was not cooperation in the sense we understood. It was a network of intent, a web of cognition that our algorithms could not simulate. They learned in real time, adapted without pause, and improved strategies as they executed them. From above, it became painfully clear. Underestimating humans is fatal. Their mastery of adversity, their ability to transform impossibility into advantage, defies conventional comprehension. They are predators of circumstance, shaping outcomes with a combination of foresight, intuition, and sheer resilience. We have cataloged countless species, studied countless strategies, but humans represent a variable that cannot be predicted, a force that cannot be contained. And yet, even as we documented them, the Martian night crept in. Shadows lengthened, moving across the encampment, mingling with the humans' towers of energy. The air shimmered with the quiet tension of anticipation. Something in their movements suggested preparation for an event beyond mere construction, a readiness for confrontation, or for some unknown trial. The structures they built pulsed now with subtle intensity, and we detected faint signals that hinted at technology beyond our understanding. We watched, frozen in analytical awe, as a single figure paused atop a ridge, its posture rigid, gaze scanning the horizon, a hand resting lightly on a device that emitted a low, rhythmic pulse. It turned slowly, as if sensing our observation, and in that instant we realized the terrifying truth. These humans do not merely survive,
They dominate. They bend environment, circumstance, and probability to their purpose. And as the first whispers of Martian wind swept across the crimson plains, carrying dust and ice, we understood that this display was but the opening act. The humans were preparing for something larger, something that would ripple across the planet and beyond. From orbit, we held our breath. For the first time, we felt dread not for our weapons, not for our strategies, but for the indomitable will of a species that refuses to be constrained. The sun vanished below the horizon, leaving only the red glow of distant storms, and the humans moved silently among their towers. The pulses of energy accelerated, shadows converged, and somewhere, in the cold, barren heart of Mars, we sensed the first tremor of the change they would unleash, a force we could not anticipate, and a resolve we could not overcome. The Martian sky darkened, and in that darkness, the humans were ready. Titan, the giant moon of Saturn, hung below us like a jewel of ice and storms, its orange-tinged atmosphere swirling with turbulence. From the shadows of our orbital platforms, we launched the first volleys, expecting hesitation, expecting fear. But what we encountered instead defied all models, all expectations. Human forces, stationed among orbital colonies we had assumed fragile, moved with a precision that bordered on prescience. Their ships twisted and rolled in ways that suggested sentience, not artificial intelligence, not programming, but awareness. Every maneuver countered our strategies before we even enacted them. Every strike we prepared met resistance that seemed premeditated, as though the humans could see the future we attempted to impose. Missiles arced across the void like coiling serpents, leaving trails of light that intersected at impossible angles.
Lasers traced geometric patterns that our minds could not calculate, guided with uncanny foresight by human operators, who by all logic should have been overwhelmed. From our vantage point, the engagement resembled a cosmic ballet, violent, chaotic, yet mesmerizingly controlled. We observed smaller squads making independent strikes, exploiting gaps in our defenses we had not noticed, neutralizing our drones with surgical precision. Every loss we inflicted was met not with despair, but with adaptation. Every setback became a lesson, a tactical evolution visible in real time. Even the orbital colonies themselves seemed extensions of their will. Docking ports, weapon arrays, and shielding systems activated in perfect harmony, responding instantaneously to threats as if each structure shared a single consciousness. Human crews coordinated across vast distances, linking ships, stations, and fighters into a network of action that defied communication theory. Our predictive algorithms, built to anticipate multivariable warfare, failed completely. Every simulation we ran collapsed in the presence of their improvisation, their audacity. Observing them, we felt something akin to awe and fear. Humans did not panic. They did not retreat. They endured, they learned, they executed. Even in the face of orbital bombardments that would have shattered any other species, they moved with unflinching resolve, weaving through explosions, debris, and fire. It was as if chaos itself paused before them, uncertain how to act against a species that refused to be constrained by probability or circumstance. We detected subtle adaptations, fighters rerouting through debris fields to create ambushes, supply pods converted mid-flight into defensive platforms, and boarding crews improvising defenses on the hulls of damaged vessels. Each move was unexpected, brilliant, terrifying. Their losses became opportunities, each casualty a spark for ingenuity. A destroyed command module became a communications relay. A shattered shield generator became a trap for approaching forces. The larger picture was even more disturbing. Humans seemed to anticipate the ebb and flow of the battle, as though they had access to the next moments of time itself. Strategic withdrawal, sudden counterattack, diversionary maneuvers, they executed them with a rhythm we could not comprehend. Even the silence between engagements held meaning, a pause pregnant with intent, calculated yet instinctive. Titan's orbit itself became a weapon in their hands. They exploited gravitational currents, debris fields, and energy fluctuations, turning the environment into a partner in combat. Our forces, once confident in numerical and technological superiority, faltered. Every engagement became a lesson in unpredictability, every encounter a revelation of human ingenuity. The very definition of control slipped through our grasp.
From our distant observation, it became terrifyingly clear. Humans are not merely combatants, they are forces of nature. Their resilience is boundless, their adaptability unmatched, their will unbreakable. They act where others would hesitate.
They endure where others would fall. They prevail where others would fail. Even as Titan's orbital colonies were battered and scarred, the humans pressed forward, reorganizing, recalibrating, and advancing with an inexorable certainty. Our fleet, prepared for a decisive strike, found itself responding to reactions we could not predict, improvising against maneuvers we could not foresee. The engagement was no longer about strategy, it was a confrontation with will itself. And then, just as we believed we had observed the limits of their cunning, a fleet emerged from the dark side of Titan, moving in perfect formation, weapons flashing like lightning across the void. Our sensors registered it, but comprehension lagged behind observation. The humans were not simply reacting, they were anticipating our anticipation. The very act of calculation became irrelevant. For the first time, we realized the immutable truth. Titan was not breaking them, Titan was revealing them. These humans whom we had underestimated were a singular variable in the cosmos, unpredictable, unstoppable, and terrifyingly effective. And as their fleet advanced, reshaping the battlefield before we could even register its scale, we understood that our encounter with them had only begun, and the next move would not be theirs alone. The void trembled with the energy of collision, and somewhere in the cold darkness, the humans smiled, or at least, we believed they did. The siege had begun, and Titan would never be the same. We thought we understood strategy. We thought we had modeled every conceivable variable. Neural simulations spanned entire networks, predicting outcomes based on countless permutations of force, terrain, and probability. We prided ourselves on calculation, on logic, on control. Then we observed the humans, and everything we believed unraveled. From our cloaked observation points, we watched a single human commander orchestrate thousands of troops. The scale of coordination should have broken their consciousness, should have overwhelmed them, but it did not. Orders rippled through ranks like living currents, adapted in real time, modified mid-transmission, evolving with a speed no algorithm could follow. Where we anticipated hesitation, there was audacity. Where we expected error, there was invention. Humans did not follow pre-established patterns. They created them, live, in the midst of chaos. We detected subversions of our own strategies. Devices we deployed to manipulate terrain were repurposed, turned against us with improvisation that bordered on artistry. Units that should have collapsed under pressure instead adapted, exploiting weaknesses invisible to our most sensitive sensors.
Each failure of ours became a lesson for them, each obstacle an opportunity. It was as if a single consciousness stretched across thousands of bodies, orchestrating disorder into symphony. What struck us most, however, was not intelligence alone. It was moral clarity. Unlike other species we cataloged, humans integrated ethics into strategy. They acted with precision without sacrificing empathy. They made choices not just to survive, but to minimize unnecessary destruction. Decisions we would expect to be cold, calculated, or ruthless carried intention, conscience, and consequence. They weighed each strike against its effect on allies, innocents, and even adversaries, creating a balance of logic and morality that rendered them unpredictable and dangerous. We attempted to quantify this. Probability matrices, decision trees, neural nets, all collapsed. Human reasoning was recursive and nonlinear, combining creativity, ethics, and relentless persistence into a feedback loop we could not penetrate. Attempts to control, to predict, even to contain were futile. Every simulation failed, every forecast collapsed, leaving only awe and unease. We observed humans adapting across environments, from orbital stations to icy moons, from urbanized colonies to desolate plains. One command could reroute fleets, reassign resources, and improvise solutions to crises in real time. The human mind appeared to operate on multiple axes simultaneously, calculating, ethical, adaptive, intuitive, and yet integrated seamlessly with the collective will of the unit. Their actions were not instinct alone, nor logic alone, but a synthesis of both in ways that defy comprehension. And with each observation, the truth became undeniable. Unpredictability is not a trait in humans, it is a weapon. The universe itself seems to bend around their intent, and any attempt to control them is inherently futile. They do not merely survive, they manipulate circumstance, exploiting uncertainty as if it were a tool forged from intention. Probability becomes pliable, environment becomes malleable, opponents become unwitting collaborators in human strategy. From our hidden vantage, we realize that the human will is an algorithm that cannot be reverse engineered. It adapts, it evolves, it learns faster than any system we can build. To understand it fully would require anticipating not only action, but motive, and their motives shift with context, emotion, and circumstance. Our models break when confronted with this complexity. Our calculations collapse in the presence of human adaptability. We fear them. Not only their weapons, their fleets, or their technology, but their unpredictability, their creativity in adversity, their fusion of moral reasoning and tactical execution makes them a singular force in the cosmos. If we cannot predict them, we cannot control them. And if we cannot control them, then everything we have prepared against them may be insufficient.
We do not yet understand the limits of their power. We have only glimpsed the edge of their capabilities, and it is terrifying. In the void of observation, one truth pierces all simulations, all strategies, all probabilities. Humans act not as other species do. They do not calculate blindly. They do not obey instinct alone. They integrate, improvise, and endure, and they will always find a path when none exists. And in the quiet of our monitoring stations, as human fleets move and adapt with flawless precision across the stars, one thought haunts our consciousness. If we cannot anticipate them, if we cannot control them, then every system we hold dear, every calculation, every strategy, every hope is exposed. Humanity is not just a species. They are a variable that transcends prediction. They are an unknown equation, alive, thinking, and relentless. The humans do not merely exist, they impose their will on the cosmos, and as our instruments tremble under the weight of their ingenuity, we understand that what comes next will not be a battle we can plan for. It will be a confrontation with the singular force of human will itself. And somewhere, across the endless reaches of space, they are already preparing their next move. Europa's frozen expanse stretched endlessly beneath our observation drones, a desolate world of ice fissures, jagged ridges, and turbulent winds that shredded everything unprotected. Our forces moved to encircle the human expeditionary units, certain that isolation, sub-zero temperatures, and the crushing weight of their environment would break them. Yet what unfolded was unlike anything we had anticipated. The humans adapted. They transformed the icy plains into fortresses, carving shelters from the frozen crust, engineering heat sources from scarce materials, creating networks of safety where our sensors predicted only despair. Each structure pulsed faintly with energy we could barely detect, a combination of resourcefulness and sheer audacity. Their ingenuity was a weapon in itself, every panel, every conduit, every carefully placed shield responding to environmental threats with the precision of a predator in its lair. We tracked small squads navigating fissures too narrow for our probes, leaping across crevices with movements that defied our calculations. Tools we could not decipher were employed with efficiency that bordered on artistry, neutralizing threats in ways that left our observers awed and unsettled. Even when cut off, outnumbered, and exposed to extreme hazard, the humans communicated with a coordination that suggested something beyond technology, almost telepathy, an unspoken network of trust and anticipation that linked their minds in perfect synchronization. We recorded their bravery with both awe and fear. They approached danger deliberately, calculating every risk, yet there was a streak of recklessness that was neither random nor foolish.
It was deliberate, a controlled chaos that confounded our predictive systems. As ice storms howled across the plains, each human act became a tactical maneuver, each step a statement of intent, each survival a lesson in adaptation. Morale did not falter, it grew. Fear became fuel. Despair became strategy. Where other species would crumble, humans thrived. From our orbiting stations, we observed the subtle interplay of human ingenuity and environment. They turned fissures into passages, ice sheets into barriers, storms into distractions. Every adaptation enhanced their resilience. Every challenge refined their tactics. Europa should have been a graveyard. The moon was designed, in our estimation, to extinguish any species lacking extreme fortitude. Yet here, against all probability, humans flourished.
They were not merely surviving, they were mastering, reshaping the battlefield in real time. The small teams we monitored executed operations that seemed impossible. One squad diverted a massive ice floe to seal a chasm, while another used the same force as cover to advance against a predator we had deployed to test them. Every loss, every near-death incident became a tool for future success. Their ability to convert adversity into advantage was unlike anything cataloged. We noticed their subtle interconnections, a glance, a gesture, a shift of weight across ice, a command transmitted without words, instantly understood by every member of the unit. It was coordination beyond programming, beyond algorithms, a form of consciousness that transcended the physical, woven into every action, every calculation, every heartbeat. The humans were a network of will, linked by trust, ingenuity, and indomitable resolve. As the Europa night deepened, the wind intensified, lashing against shelters and eroding ice ridges. Yet the humans pressed on. Supply lines rerouted dynamically, defensive perimeters adjusted without delay. Teams moved through storms with precision that mocked expectation. Our analysts, who had predicted inevitable collapse, found themselves recalibrating models that now defy probability. Human actions on Europa were a revelation. Species-level resilience sculpted by adversity, sharpened by crisis, elevated into art. And through it all, the humans did not merely react, they anticipated. They transformed fear into calculation, fatigue into strategy, scarcity into invention. Every movement, every improvisation, every daring maneuver revealed the fundamental truth of their species. They are not bound by circumstance, they shape it. The moon's frozen expanse, hostile to all but the most specialized life forms, became their crucible. In fire or ice, they did not break. They were refined, honed, made stronger. Our observations noted a pattern across Europa. Where we expected despair, there was strategy. Where we anticipated retreat, there was advance. Where we predicted failure, there was improvisation.
Every environment tested them and yielded a human solution more sophisticated than the last. Their adaptation was recursive, self-improving, unstoppable. It was as if the universe itself had been rewritten by their presence. Europa was no longer a site of testing. It had become a proving ground, a theater of human supremacy. Each squad, each maneuver, each survival bore witness to the terrifying potential of their species. The humans are not merely survivors, they are arbiters of destiny. They wield resilience like a weapon, courage like a shield, and willpower like gravity itself. And in the shadow of ice cliffs, under storms that should have silenced them, we felt the tremor of inevitability. Humanity will endure. They will adapt. They will prevail. Europa, the moon meant to crush life, bore witness to their triumph. Yet in the distance, subtle movements drew our sensors' attention. Figures we had not accounted for, structures shifting, energy patterns emerging. The humans had not only survived the crucible, they were preparing for what came next. Something larger, something that would ripple beyond Europa, beyond Saturn, beyond the limits of our calculations. The ice groaned, storms whipped the plains into fury, and in that endless white expanse, the humans advanced, unbroken, unbowed, a force that would not be denied. Europa would remember them, and so would we. The remnants of the human star colony hung like a shattered jewel against the black void, its once brilliant light now flickering like a candle in a gale. From our distant observation posts, we expected chaos, we expected collapse, we expected the humans, exhausted and outnumbered, to break under the weight of overwhelming odds. What we witnessed instead was a force of nature. Human engineers moved across the debris-strewn platforms, improvising under fire, rigging failing systems into tactical advantages. A collapsing energy conduit became a trap for our advancing units. A ruptured shield generator was converted into a temporary barricade, deflecting bombardments we had calculated would obliterate their defenses. Each action was deliberate, precise, and terrifyingly effective. Where any other species might panic, the humans coordinate. Where probability predicted loss, they impose outcome. Where chaos should have reigned,
order emerged, not perfectly, but with a terrifying resilience that defied expectation. We observed sacrifices made with surgical precision. Crew members deliberately drew fire to protect others, leading enemy units into ambushes, extinguishing themselves so that the living might endure. It was calculated courage, a bravery bordering on the incomprehensible. Each act, each maneuver, each defiant gesture seemed to bend reality itself, as though the universe yielded to the sheer force of human will. Our instruments, calibrated to detect threat and movement, trembled under the intensity of their resolve. The fleets of the human star pressed forward relentlessly.
Ships that should have been destroyed continued to maneuver, adapted in real time, and launched coordinated strikes that decimated our forces. Explosions lit the void with streaks of white and orange fire, lasers arcing across kilometers like serpentine predators. Yet even as hulls ruptured and systems failed, the humans advanced, undeterred by loss or exhaustion. Probability itself seemed to contract around them, reshaping under their influence. From our vantage, we felt something alien, an awe tinged with dread. We have cataloged countless species across the cosmos, witnessed intelligence and strategy in forms both organic and artificial. Yet nothing prepared us for this. Humans operate beyond prediction, beyond control, beyond the bounds of conventional logic. They do not merely react, they anticipate, improvise, and impose their will with a consistency that defies understanding. And then, as the light of their dying star flickered, we saw them standing among ruins we expected to be their tomb. Bodies scarred, ships damaged, structures broken, yet their gaze was unbroken, their stance unbowed. In that moment, a realization struck us. The human spirit cannot be quantified. It cannot be predicted. It cannot be contained. All models, all calculations, all attempts to impose order upon them were irrelevant. The survivors moved as one, a synthesis of will and action, restoring damaged systems, redirecting energy, coordinating defenses, and striking with precision. Every human act was purposeful, imbued with courage, ingenuity, and an unyielding determination that radiated outward, affecting the very battlefield around them. Probability bent in their favor not through luck, but through sheer force of intent. Their resilience became a weapon, their resolve a shield, their unity a force that transcended mere numbers. The final engagements unfolded like a symphony of destruction and adaptation. Explosions, maneuvers, and countermeasures intertwined in a choreography beyond comprehension. Ships we had expected to collapse pressed forward, their crews improvising in ways that shattered our expectations. Systems on the verge of failure were repurposed, transforming disaster into opportunity. Every human casualty was a lesson, every survival a proof of their indomitable will. As the last embers of their star flickered, we watched the surviving humans gaze outward, eyes sharp, posture resolute. The void itself seemed to recoil in the presence of their determination. They did not celebrate, they did not falter, they endured, they prevailed. In that moment, we understood. Humans are not merely another species among billions. They are a singular force in the cosmos, their potential boundless, their resilience unmatched, their will to survive and to triumph absolute. The human star, once a beacon now dying, became a monument, not to light, but to the endurance of a species that bends reality to purpose. From our observation point, we cataloged awe, fear, and a new understanding. To confront humanity is to confront a force that cannot be subdued, cannot be constrained, and cannot be predicted. And as the remnants of the colony stood against the void, unbroken, unbowed, we realized the final truth of their existence. Humans do not merely endure the universe, they define it. The last light of the human star shone not as a fading signal, but as a declaration. Humanity survives, humanity prevails, humanity shapes destiny itself. And somewhere across the endless expanse, we sensed the next movement forming, a surge of will that would ripple beyond this battle, beyond this system, beyond comprehension. The cosmos itself would bend to the presence of humans. And we understood, finally, that nothing, not probability, not strategy, not our might, could contain them.
The light flickered once more, and humanity endured.